6 most disturbing mysteries solved with Google Maps.
At around 1 p.m. on November 2nd, 2020, an 83-year-old mother of 4 named Paulette Landriax mysteriously disappeared from her home in Onden.
I'm in the grave!
At the time, her husband was...
Alright, we're turning these off. This is me! I'm in the grave! I'm in the grave! Alright, and turning those off. Okay, let's go.
Hanging the laundry up to dry in the garden and didn't notice she was gone until later that afternoon. When Paulette's family realized she was missing, they reported the disappearance to the police, triggering a pretty big search for the missing woman. Though this wasn't the first time Paulette disappeared, as she reportedly suffered from Alzheimer's disease and would frequently leave the house at random times of the day and night without telling her husband where she was going. She was known to randomly knock on the neighbors' doors for no apparent reason, in the years leading up to her disappearance, she no longer recognized her children or her husband.
Man, that's fucked,
Every other time she had disappeared, her husband would find her a few feet away from the house and bring her back inside. But this time, she was nowhere to be found. During the search, 50 police officers and several search and rescue dogs were deployed to the area, along with multiple thermal vision helicopters and an entire fleet of drones.
Holy shit.
But even with all these resources at their disposal, the local police department failed to find any relevant clues leading to Paulette. After several weeks, the search was called off, and the family assumed that she had fallen into the Meuse River, which ran near her home. In October of 2022, just as the police department was about to close the file, one investigator was searching for Paulette's house on Google Street View and found something shocking. There, as luck would have it, he found a Street View image of Paulette leaving her home and crossing the street to her neighbor's house. The case was immediately reopened, and police were once again deployed to the area, where they found the body of Paulette lying at the bottom of a hill directly below the neighbor's garden. After the autopsy was performed, it was determined that the woman had fallen from an unenclosed section of the garden and died shortly after. Her final moments eerily being caught by the passing Google Street View car as she walks to her death, likely in another wave of confused state caused by her Alzheimer's disease. One thing that's hard to understand is how the police failed to see her with their drones and helicopters the first time. But at least now the family can find closure knowing what happened to Paulette.
Dude, that's classic
police,
with
this
man.
Eerie last image of her ever being seen alive. If you visit the location on Google Maps today, you'll find the image has been overwritten by a more up-to-date view of the town. In July 2011, 2 armed individuals broke into an empty house in an otherwise peaceful suburb of Oklahoma City. With a house full of valuables for them to steal and nobody there to stop them, the 2 got to work. But unfortunately for them, the looting spree was much more short-lived than they had hoped. A few minutes later, the homeowner returned and walked in on the 2 of them looting her house.
Holy shit.
But instead of fleeing with the valuables they had already stolen, they held her at gunpoint as they continued to ransack her home. This went on for over an hour, and during the traumatizing incident, the woman recalled thinking they were going to shoot her before leaving. Fortunately, the robbers eventually left the house without physically harming the woman. After the armed robbery, she refused to reveal her identity to the press out of fear that the thieves would retaliate. The woman later reported the incident to the cops, but with no witnesses and an absence of solid leads, the case eventually went cold, and the woman lost hope that the 2 criminals would ever be found. However, 3 years later, the case took an unexpected turn. On a day in July 2014, the woman's neighbor was looking at her street using Google Maps Street View when she noticed an image of 2 men casually strolling down the street who perfectly matched the description the victim had given her of the criminals.
Bro, perfectly matched the description? What? Guy in a blue shirt and a yellow shirt? How can you perfectly match the description? What? Like, what?
Immediately, she texted the woman, who confirmed that the 2 men captured by the Street View van that happened to be mapping out the neighborhood on the day of the robbery were indeed the same 2 men who had robbed her. Based on the direction they were walking, it seems that the image was captured in the minutes leading up to the crime. Unfortunately,
yeah, we all know what they meant. We all know what they meant.
Because the 2 men's faces are obscured by the grainy quality of the image and Google's software that automatically blurs pedestrians, the cops haven't been able to track the men down.
Doesn't it automatically blur license plate too? It doesn't blur street signs though, right? It blurs license plates though, right? Yeah, okay.
But with a string of...
I don't really use Google Maps that much. Well, like in this way. Like I think I've only used it a handful of times in my entire life.
Clues and a picture to add to their search, police now have a much better chance of catching the 2 thanks to Google Maps. One night
so
in
they didn't even
October
catch him.
2006, a 72-year-old man named David Lee Niles met up with a friend at Jake's Bar in Byrontown, Michigan. This was a place that David visited frequently and usually stayed there for at least a couple.
Wait, hold on. It blurs sexual things too. Okay, so let's say that like two people are just unhinged and they just go out on the front lawn and just start. Some guys on like Google Maps, like it's gonna blur that. It tries to blur all humans. Okay.
Of Michigan. This was a
I'm just curious. Okay.
place that David visited frequently and usually stayed there for at least a couple of hours. But on that particular evening, the story was very different. Earlier that year, David had been diagnosed with cancer, and after a brief conversation with his friend, he left abruptly, claiming that he was in a lot of physical pain due to the cancer. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. When his family failed to get in touch with him, they reported him missing to the police, leading to a statewide search that ultimately led nowhere, as the cops couldn't find any clues as to where David could have gone. In 2011, 5 years after his disappearance, his family lost hope and accepted the idea that David was gone. The obituary they published online read, "David Lee Niles, age 72 of Wyoming, passed away and only God knows the time and place." The case went completely cold until almost a decade later when a new twist shed light on David's disappearance. One morning in November 2000,
It's crazy to me how like something will happen and people keep these records for like 10 years, 20 years, and then they solve the case or whatever, like, you know, like decades later, man. I'm really interested in like criminal documentaries and stuff. You know, like there's a channel, JCS, it's pretty good. Although that's more interrogation, but like forensic files and, you know, like all that shit. I find that stuff very interesting. And like how they find you, someone will commit like a murder or something and they'll leave no evidence behind except for like a tiny little follicle of carpet. They keep that follicle of carpet and then like 10 years later, they'll link the carpet material to like the carpet in someone's house. And then they'll match like the DNA on that little tiny material with the DNA in their house. Dude, it's insane like how they catch people, dude. Everything you do is there like forever in some way, shape, or form, man.
2015, Brian Hausman, an employee of the Cook Funeral Home in Byron County, was decorating the company Christmas tree outside. When he got to the top of the tree on his lift to put up the star, he noticed something in the adjacent pond that looked like a submerged car. Immediately, he called the police, and using Google Maps from a bird's eye view, they were able to see the same outline that was described. A dive team was deployed to the area, who confirmed that there was in fact a car at the bottom of the pond. Later that morning, a wrecking crew pulled out the vehicle for the police to inspect. Inside the vehicle, the cops found the skeletal remains of a man, along with a wallet belonging to David Lee Niles.
10 years later.
After it was confirmed that the skeletal remains were his, David's family members finally found some closure. Still, the case remains a mystery as it's unknown what exactly happened to him. Even before his cancer diagnosis, David was known to have severe depressive episodes, and things understandably got a lot worse for him after he found out about the illness. With all this in mind, it's possible that he took his own life, but we'll likely never know for sure.
Sad, man.
In the 80s and 90s, Gioacchino Gamino was one of Italy's most wanted gangsters. He operated within a Sicilian mafia clan in Agrigento that was embroiled in a feud with Cosa Nostra, Sicily's main mafia network.
I don't know any of that.
He was first arrested in 1984 for murder and various other mafia-related crimes, but was later released shortly after. In 1998, he was arrested again in Barcelona, only this time he was sentenced to life in prison. After serving 4 years of his prison sentence at a prison in Rome, he managed to escape in 2002 during a commotion at the prison. Following his escape, he immediately relocated to a town near Madrid, Spain, and changed his name to Manuel Mormino. Over the 20 years that he was on the run from the police,
20 years? Bro, he was on the run for 20 years? That has got to be an intense life.
He got married, worked as a chef at a restaurant called Manu's Kitchen, and even opened up a fruit and vegetable shop called Manu's Garden. Sicilian police searched everywhere for him for years, and they eventually issued a European arrest warrant back in 2014. After carrying out several investigations, the police suspected that Gamino was hiding somewhere in Spain, but the way they pinpointed his exact location was pretty out of the ordinary. During the investigation, Sicilian police found that Google Maps had captured a street view image of two men talking outside of Manu's garden. One of the men looked extremely similar to the man they were looking for, but
dude, how can you tell? It's just two guys. What do you mean extremely similar?
the cops did. One of the men looked extremely similar to the man they were looking for, but the cops only confirmed his identity when they came across a listing for Manu's Kitchen, the restaurant where Gamino worked. While investigating online,
I feel like they had to have another lead. Like, there's no way you can tell what these people look like, man. Why would you just randomly check in this restaurant? There had to be like another lead or something, man.
extremely similar to the man they were looking for, but the cops only confirmed his identity when they came across a listing for Manu's Kitchen, the restaurant where Gamino worked. While investigating online, the police found a photo of him dressed in chef's attire on the Facebook page for Manu's Kitchen.
Ooh, okay.
After confirming his
Facebook.
location, the police arrested Joaquino Gamino on December 17, 2022, and
Wow.
extradited him to Sicily, where he is currently serving life in prison. According to the police, when they arrested him, Gamino was extremely confused and even had the nerve to ask how they found him when he hadn't even called his family in 10 years.
Holy shit.
In 2009, police from Zurich, Switzerland were
That's crazy, dude. 20 years on the run, man. You got to think after like 5, you're like, okay, I'm good. I got away. Right? And then after 10, you're like, there ain't no way they're finding me. And then after 15, you're probably like, wait, did I used to be a different person back in the day?
carrying out an investigation to shut down illegal marijuana growing operations all over the country. At some point in the investigation, they used Google Earth to locate the addresses of 2 farmers who they suspected of being part of an illegal marijuana operation, and that's when one of the detectives found something interesting. As he was scanning the area on Google Earth, he noticed an unusual change in the pattern of the fields around Rapperswil in the northeastern state of Thurgau.
Oh, I'll check
Zooming
it
in,
later,
he
yeah.
saw what appeared to be a cannabis plantation that measured more than 2 acres and was hidden inside a cornfield right next to one of the farmers' houses. The Google Earth discovery ultimately led to the arrest of 16 people and the seizure of 1.1 metric tons of marijuana,
Holy
as well as
fuck.
900,000 Swiss francs in cash, which is the equivalent of around $1.1 million. According to the police report, the
That's
drug
a
ring
lot of
allegedly
weed.
sold up to 7 tons of marijuana between 2004 and 2008, bringing in from 3 to 10 million francs a year. When asked about the breakthrough, the head of Zurich Police's Special Narcotics Unit, Norbert Glossner, said it was an interesting chance discovery. Since then, the cannabis plantation has been plowed over as recreational marijuana continues to be illegal in Switzerland.
Damn.
This incident happened at a home in Derbyshire, England, where David and
Strummer, do you partake? No, I don't really do drugs. I'm serious, I don't. I barely even drink. I mean, I don't smoke weed. Obviously, I don't do like heroin or crack or anything, but even like weed, man, you know what? Like, I mean, I used to like smoke weed a lot when I was like 20, 22, you know. Well, not a lot, but I did it like at parties and stuff, you know, and I would drink at parties and stuff, you know. I personally, I don't like that type of stuff, not because I'm like morally against it or anything like that. I don't like it just because I don't like the way that makes me feel. Okay, like I was never a person that's like, oh man, I can't wait to get drunk, bro, gonna get fucked up, you know. Well, I mean, I guess I was a little bit back when I was 21 or 22, but I didn't actually feel that way. I just said that to be cool. For me, a really good high is like when I take pre-workout, take some pump pills, and then I go and I bench press like 300 pounds, and I'm sitting there after the lift, and I have all this blood flowing throughout my whole body, and I'm just sitting there, and it's like orgasmic, and I'm just like, holy shit. It's like a program that just stopped running, you know, like .ex or whatever has stopped running. That's what it's like to me. That's how I get high.
Rebecca Soanes lived with their 2 children, Lauren and Ruben. In 2009, the family bought a caravan to travel across the country, but it was unfortunately destroyed shortly after when a joyrider crashed into it. A few months later, they bought a new $15,000 caravan to replace the old one, which they left in their driveway. In June of that year, Rebecca came home one day to find the caravan had disappeared, after which she immediately reported the incident to the police. However, with no solid leads, the cops couldn't really do anything about it, and the case went cold pretty quickly. It wasn't until 9 months later, in March of 2010, that 11-year-old Ruben Soanes found something revealing as he was looking at his house on Google
An
Maps.
11-year-old kid found this.
Using the street view, he found an image of a male intruder on the family's driveway, standing suspiciously outside of his 4x4 vehicle. After a bit of investigating, the family found that the image had been captured by the Google Street View car just moments before the caravan was stolen. Around that time, a neighbor also came forward saying that he had seen the same man towing the caravan on the day of the robbery, but thought that it was a family friend and didn't think it was important to tell the family about it. With such a clear image of the suspect, the Sones thought it would be easy for the cops to solve the crime, but it turned out to be much more difficult than expected to get an unblurred image of the 4x4's license plates from Google. Even though the police knew exactly
Dude, look at this picture. This picture says, got your ass.
what the thief looked like, it was never publicly confirmed if they managed to track him down or not.
Yo, that was good. That was good. I love this guy's channel, man. Love this guy's channel. So good.